Jegaysus.
Hi, friends.
Hi, heathens.
Oh, that was like a Uno reverse.
I like it. Nice.
How's everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Unholy Trinit-Tea, where you come for the gospel and stay for the gossip. And I have a feeling today's going to be a lot more of the latter.
Yeah, let's do a gossip. It's great. We haven't been, like, all three of us together in a few episodes, so
I
this is
know.
good.
Yeah.
I know. It's
I
time
think
to be exceptionally petty.
Yeah, all of us are in the mood to ruin other people's days. And
Always.
so we're just going to see what happens, and you all get to just hang out and see if you leave this unscathed or not. Here we go.
I feel
So,
like
who's
anybody
been
in the
watching the
audience is
news
also in the
recently?
mood to destroy. Oh, go for it. What
Sorry.
news?
Yeah, what news? What news? So, I am just flying by the seat of my pants here, but in the last couple of weeks, just top of the mind, there was a mass shooting in Buffalo in a predominantly black neighborhood that was also a food desert until they fought to get a grocery store there, and we had a white supremacist drive several hours to specifically target this black store. And in case anyone didn't see it, his gun had a slur on it, and also said, "These are your reparations." So that was the first thing. We moved on from there to I believe the next thing, I could be wrong, was the SBC sexual assault report. So that was done by, we can talk about this more in detail, but just in case people don't know what I'm talking about, there was an independent report done by an organization called Guidepost that looked into the last several decades of sexual abuse in the Southern Baptist Convention churches, and released about a 300-page report, which was horrifying, and then released a pastor's report listing out all of the pastors that had been either accused or convicted of sexual assault. And then right on the heels of that bad boy, we found out, or at least I heard, some of us heard, that the pastor in Indiana announced that he had an affair 25 years ago, and asked for forgiveness and for, what did he ask for? Privacy. He was going to step down. And as soon as he did that, the church gave him a standing ovation, and a woman came to the front, took the microphone, and said, "That was 27 years ago, and I was 16. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, she got basically booed off the stage. And then I was given information from a friend who knows people in Warsaw, Indiana, who said actually his son, Jeremiah Lowe, has a bunch of allegations as well, and connected me to a couple of pages where people were telling their stories. And then right on the back of that, we got news. I was actually trying to make a video about that when I found out from an alert that there was a mass shooting at an elementary school in Texas, where at first it said 14 children had died. We now know it's, I believe, 19 plus a teacher, and the grandmother of the shooter, 2 teachers. And as if all of that wasn't exhausting and depressing and horrifying and just utterly dystopian, the NRA had its convention like less than a week later. Politicians are coming out with the same tired-ass rhetoric about how we actually need more guns. That's
More guns.
the answer. What we need to
more.
do is turn our elementary schools into maximum security prisons. Or, if not
Just get rid of
that, then
doors.
we should just get rid of public schools altogether and everybody should go to school.
Yeah, there's that.
Oh, and how could I forget? This all comes, all of this absolute onslaught of horrifying, right after we saw the leaked decision by the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade.
It's been a fuck of a month. Sorry if it's after. Yeah, we're 5 minutes in. I can say that. It's been a fuck.
Just sorry. I think I ruined the chance of monetization after I said, like, sexual assault in the first minute.
Yeah, it's not great. And to be honest, like, as all of these things are going on, like, I have way too much time on my hands because I was just laid off. So I've been obsessively watching the news and knitting at the same time. And
Well, that's
I've
good.
thrown myself into the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial because it's like a very happy distraction from what's going on in the world. So, like, I'm not running away from the news, but that's where my majority of the news day has been spent, is just watching trials. And that's unhealthy too. But
Yeah,
I feel like
that
that's the
trial-
reason why this case is so big right now, is because people want to run away.
And that trial is a nightmare in and of itself, because
It is. It's so stupid.
have heard so much analysis on why Amber is the abuser, on why Johnny is the abuser, on how this is a typical case of X, how no, this is a typical case of Y. And to be fair, I have not watched the case. I can't take it. I can't take anymore. What I do feel afraid of, I guess, in a way, or concerned with, obviously, if Amber Heard is the abuser in this situation, I want her to be held accountable for her actions. What I'm afraid of is that, in fact, maybe Johnny was the abuser and she is responding to him. Maybe not. But in either case, there are many people that are taking this opportunity to say, see, women are bad.
Yes.
Women can
No,
be
that's
abusers too. And we're
the
going to lump
whole thing that
all
I
these
have
other
an
women
issue
with them.
with. And I made a TikTok making that very clear, not on my Jegaysus account, but on my politics account, because I've seen so much disgusting rhetoric around this. Like, there's a channel on YouTube called Popcorn Planet where I watch, they have, like, different lawyers and stuff on to do an analysis of the court time.
Right.
And the rhetoric I continuously hear is, like, you know, fuck Amber Heard, she's, like, blah, 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 blah. Like, I hope she's barren and never can have children, and she's a disgusting monster, and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that may be true. I don't think that's the kind of commentary we need to be bringing into it. And if you look at the internet, there's a whole ton of Johnny Depp fans, and they are very much ride or die for him right now. And Johnny Depp is not innocent in all this. He's said some very disgusting things and done some very violent things, and they're on recording. Whether she started it or he started it, it's toxic and it's abusive, and they're both shitty people. They should not be glorified. And I've just been seeing a lot of, usually dude bros, holding Johnny Depp up to this, like, oh, well, he just responded as he should kind of thing, and women can be abusers too, which, yeah, they can, but he should not be getting a gold star here.
Right.
And like, the whole defense that Johnny Depp is using here is, I'm likable and she's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That entire structuring is so common. And this whole idea of, like, women can be crazy, women are just crazy, but look how likable I am, look at how all these people like me. The amount of times that is used to dismiss assault charges on, like, for men, like, that's used all the time. And it's the exact same song and dance. And that's the dangerous thing about legal precedent, right?
Yeah.
Like, 90% of the shit in our country that has to do with legal whatever is not written down. It's common law, right? It's legal precedent that is just functioning in the court system. So what has most consistently worked in regards to men and cases of assault? It's this pattern. I'm likable, she's crazy. So, like, the sheer fact that that can be used because it has a success rate says a lot about our legal system.
I feel like that's a good crossover back to the pastor in Indiana, because, like, look at how pastors use the same likability stance. I have an entire congregation of people who trust me. I have an entire congregation of people who respect me. So what I did is obviously not that bad.
No, they have an entire congregation of people that have idolized them, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I will die on this hill that people idolize religious leaders. Idolatry. And that's why they refuse to hear anything negative against them, because they have propped these men, and occasionally women, but usually men, propped them up as these untouchable demigods, whether or not they want to admit it. And so they will find ways to justify or explain away anything that comes against them. I mean, I just read one of these stories from from this woman who was saying that, so the reverend in Indiana, his name is John Lowe II. His son is Jeremiah Lowe. And this woman said that she was groomed and abused by him starting when she was 11 and he was 18. When she was 16, she finally got the courage.
This is Jeremiah's.
Yes, Jeremiah's.
Sorry, to clarify, is this the pastor or Jeremiah's case? Okay.
This is Jeremiah the son. And when she was 16, she finally went to the police and told them. And they effectively told her, like, well, your memories might be fuzzy. Like, it's really hard. You don't want to, like, take the stand because, they're going to eat you alive when you're on the stand. Like, da-da-da-da-da-da.
It's going to be re-traumatizing.
Exactly. They discouraged her from pressing charges. So she didn't. And then she said, at the end of it, she said, okay, fine. Can I at least get a restraining order against the Lowe's? To at least give me some measure of protection. And the police said to her, yeah, that's really not a good idea because we'll have to notify the Lowe's and that's going to make them angry. Good.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning earlier the whole, like, we idolize these figures. I think that's part of it, but, like, I think we forget how religion socializes. It's how people of religion socialize their own community. Like, and that's a piece of this as well. Like, when we think about religion in its most practical sense, it functions within this social group as a place where we gather, a place where we know who to listen to, a place where we can know who is ours and who is not. A lot of people do idolize their pastors, but it is also genuinely disruptive in their minds to think that their pastor could go away. Like, it's an inconvenience to them.
Yeah.
And their structure. So I think there's a selfishness piece that we forget about. I'm agreeing with everything you said.
Of course.
When we have a socialization process in religion that teaches us, here's the text that we trust, here's the people that are ours, here's the person that I can listen to, here's the people I should avoid, and all of that works together, and we keep reteaching each other over and over again. A pastor it is easier for that brain, for any religious socialized person's brain to say, I don't want that pastor to lose their job because of how it inconvenienced my social schema.
Right.
My life would be disrupted if they went away. My church would be disrupted if they went away. I'd rather forgive them than hold them accountable. I genuinely think that's a part of this too.
Yeah.
I think it's part of it, but I'd also like to say that I think I think part of the issue is also kind of like Jess was saying, that they idolize them. I think Christianity likes to put down other religions and say that, like, Catholics are crazy because they have the Pope, or the LDS Church is crazy because they have prophets. Prophets still very much exist in evangelicalism. Whether they admit it or not, they treat their head pastors as if they have a direct line to God. They treat them as if they have some kind of secret knowledge, some kind of way of reading the Bible that nobody else can touch, and that's the issue. So it's halfway between putting an idol up, it's halfway between thinking they have some kind of special communication with God, and then it's halfway inconvenience. It's a third.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that any of us are wrong. I think these are all just really entertaining pieces that are just so... That's why deconstruction is uncomfortable, because it requires you to unpack all of these ideas and all these tendencies that you've trusted your entire life.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and also I think there's a degree, which I know it sounds so cliche, but it's this kind of underlying current, which I think you touched on. Okay, well, if we do hold him accountable in some way, how many people will that harm, right? How many people are going to then not have a pastor at this church, or going to lose their father, or going to lose their husband, like, or going to lose their anything, right? Whatever role this person plays. And because usually pastors have a decent sized congregation, even if it's only 100 people or 60 people, that's still quite a few people. If the individual person is saying, how many people will this injure if I, require this person to be held accountable? Even 50 people is a lot to one person, right? And so, then they think, it's almost like this weird cost benefit analysis where people are like, well, like, okay, yeah, that one person was harmed, but my pastor seems really sorry and he apologized. And so, like, if God forgives him, I should too. Because evangelicalism especially has this weird notion of repentance without any actual action or consequences, right? They think that you can say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, to God, not to the person you fucking harmed, to God, because they think your sin is between you and God. And if
We
God
see this with the
forgives you,
Duggars.
then you're all good to go. And the thing, and I was talking to someone about this, I don't know if it was earlier today or last night, I can't remember. The fact that Christianity has evolved from Judaism is bonkers to me, right? Because, I mean, it's not evolved. It was co-opted from Judaism, but, like, Judaism requires that if you do something wrong, you don't go to God and say, please forgive me. You go to the person, and you have to be genuinely sorry, and then you have to make genuine attempts to make amends, and that person doesn't have to forgive you. They don't have
That's
to
what
forgive you.
repentance is. That is
Exactly.
actual
and you
repentance.
still have to try and make those amends. You face the consequences of your actions. Otherwise, things are not set right. And so you have Christians that are just like, well, it doesn't actually matter that I harmed you individually and traumatized you and fucked up your life forever. I spoke to God myself personally, and we're all good here because all I have to do is ask.
It reminds me of Book of Mormon. I spoke to God. You spoke to God? I want to piggyback on that if I can. Wait, Andrew has to go. I have a personal story that relates back to the schisms.
He's about to explode.
Okay, so some of you may know I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, right? So my very first, I'd say, like, I did a TikTok about this too, but I think my first step, if you will, in deconstruction was being a child around like 7 or 8, and we had this moment before I was a member of the church because I wasn't baptized, I was too young. We had this moment where the pastor had to do the same thing, come up on stage, admit to the congregation that he'd been in an affair for 5 years. I think that woman was legal, but she was still young. She was like 18, 19, so God knows what was going on before that. And so he admitted that, like, him and his wife are staying together, they're going to work through things, but he needed to air it in front of the congregation and let them decide. So then the members had to all privately vote on what was going to be done with him. And I wasn't a member because I wasn't 13 and baptized. But what happened is the church divided. It was probably a congregation about 100, and it was probably split like 50-50. 50 wanted to stay and support him through this rough time, and 50 were like, you know, he's broken something. Yeah, support him. And the other 50 are like, no, this is egregious. We can't follow under someone who's so ungodly. And so they split off and created a new church in like a trailer in like a parking lot somewhere. And so that was my first witnessing of that. My family was on the split off and go somewhere else team. So that was the first time I realized, like, pastors are not infallible. Pastors are people. Pastors can be dicks.
They usually are.
After being taught this whole time to raise somebody up, I learned very early on, like, they're just humans and they should be treated as such. They should be given respect when respect is earned, and they should be guarded against because they're men. And so, it's not surprising to see another SBC list come out with all these other pastors. Like, that's just par for the fucking course.
So, y'all stumbled into, like, my favorite theology rant space, maybe ever, and I gotta talk.
Go.
Please do.
Fucking mind if I don't. Okay, so Matthew 18 is one of the wildest chapters in the entire New Testament, because if Christian churches followed this at all, it would be a fundamentally different space. Because it straight up tells you in the text, like, it's Jesus going, here's how you run things. And he says flat out, if there's an offense, you go to that person one-on-one and you deal with it. If the offense is not met, bring another and make sure that it is being met. If it still is not taken seriously, you bring before your authority over y'all, over all y'all. And if they still won't listen, you boot them. All right? You go, y'all can't handle this right now. Obviously, you can't handle not hurting people. Get the fuck out so you get better. Like, that's a whole ass thing in the Bible. And it is such a big deal in, like, Anabaptist teachings, which is like old school Mennonites. And it's a big deal in Mennonite teachings. And it is this, like, structure right there out of the mouth of Jesus that 99.9% of Christians ignore.
It's very inconvenient.
We took it very different in my Baptist church. We took that verse to mean that you're not allowed to sue anybody as a Christian. And what you're saying is you need to go one-on-one with that person, your brother in Christ, and resolve it and tell nobody else. It should be between you two and you two only. Done. End of story. Somebody rapes you, it's fine. Go to your rapist, figure it out. Don't tell anybody else.
I mean, I will figure it out, but one of us will be going to jail and the other will be dead. So, like, we'll figure it out, but it's not going to be, like, that's not going to be the outcome that folks want. Like, how are you going to tell sexually abused people to go to their rapist and resolve it? Do you want to know what's going to happen? Most of the time, they're not going to go, but then there's going to be a couple that do. And, like...
And see, that's the messed up part right there, because like that's the whole. Like, we twisted that piece. It is one of the most cold-blooded, like, get your shit together pieces of the New Testament, and it could be so cool if it was actually followed. Because it's like you are starting to do this an offense to me. Stop. And then if people don't listen, you bring it in front of someone else, and then so you make it public as soon as it's clear it's not going to end, right? In cases of violence, totally different set of rules. You don't go to that person one-on-one. You bring it to someone else immediately that's an authority. And if they won't reconcile that this is an issue, they're out. They're kicked out. And so it's like, it's the root of excommunication, but it was used to protect people. At least that's what the text is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right, instead of shunning people, which is how it's been twisted in most places that it exists. Yeah.
I said this the other day, and I will say it again. If Jesus was around today, he would burn the fucking American church to the ground. Like, nothing would be left
Jesus
standing.
would kill Paul.
I mean, I don't know.
Just have to throw it out there.
I mean, that he would most certainly have not done that part there, Jegaysus. But yeah, I mean, he would have walked into a temple and say that it will be torn asunder.
Yeah.
Like, he would have done that.
Yeah.
Or temples being these giant megachurches.
Yeah.
Like,
I chatted with someone this morning. I did an interview with someone that is doing a master's in biblical studies, and their thesis is on the theology of autism. Now, that was a fascinating discussion, but the important part to hear, is something that, like, I hadn't really ever even thought about before or knew. This passage where Jesus, like, because you were saying that, the temples would have been torn asunder, the passage where Jesus goes to the temple, fashions his own whip, goes back to the temple, and flips tables, right? I was very much taught that this verse was about, like, not worshiping money and not having this, like, sort of, like, business transactions in the church. And he was sharing, I don't know if this was the, like, absolute meaning or a translation or whatever, but it was that the church was the temple was being made inaccessible to like, poor folks. And because people couldn't get into the temple, like, there was this problem. Now, obviously, I don't think Jesus was, like, gung-ho about having sort of business transactions in the temple, but, like, also this idea of space not being made for people to be there, right? Like, keeping... Which
is why it's dangerous
out.
of the verse, too. That's why Jewish people call it out as an anti-Semitic story, because it's saying that the Jewish rabbis were money-hungry, and that's where we get so many of these, stereotypes.
And that is such a tense text that belongs in an Eastern conversation, right? Like, in Eastern conversations where you can go, well, where it can be wrestled with and say, well, what would make my following of God sincere?
Right.
That text has space to operate. As soon as it enters into our Western framework of what is right, what is wrong, who is in charge, who is not, that's when it gets really, really gross.
Yeah.
And that's half of our problem is a lot of these Eastern texts are owned by Western nationalists. Of course, like, when you read an entire book upside down, you're probably going to get some things wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps happening.
That's why we keep on seeing exceptionalism pop up. Like, it's fueled by the Bible.
We have the only and best
way.
understanding, and we're going to twist the Bible to make
my
it
God-given
say
rights,
whatever
dude.
we want.
My God-given rights.
My rights.
My God. God's going to give you those rights, dude.
It gets so messy so fast because, like,
God gave me the Second
at this
Amendment.
Point, do what?
No,
I keep saying it. It's my God-given right to have the Second Amendment.
The Second Amendment is my God-given right
to own guns.
First of all, it's not.
It's not even
if it's
a legal
any,
right, really.
If it's any given right, it's certainly not God. It's like the founding fathers who were kind of shitty, to be honest. And if we're gonna, yeah. Anyway, I just
also like it wasn't a given because it had to be amended in. These guys were sitting around and were like, "We're done," and there's nothing about guns involved. They thought they were done, and there were no guns. It had to be added. That's what fuck. If these people that think they know constitutional law will learn how to Google the word amendment, I think this entire conversation would get so much more interesting so fast.
They will never.
And
but like the absurdity to
these
think
are-
that like
these
they
are the
equate it
same
to human
people-
rights.
yeah.
That's
These are the same
gross.
people that think that the same people that think that all of the founding fathers were evangelical Christians. Like that.
Yeah.
These are the people we're dealing with. Like, no, they weren't. Some of them were
The
deists.
Constitution is inerrant, and that's why we have so many amendments.
Right, I'm like, how are you going to tell me that someone... I saw this the other day somewhere, so I'm sorry if this was the person that said it, you watched this. Why are we trusting people that would be mystified by a dishwasher to be right in perpetuity about everything? The guns they were talking about took 20 minutes to fucking load around. Right? Y'all want rights to guns that take 20 minutes to load around? You know what? You can have them.
How about it?
That's fine. You can
Yes.
have them. I'm down. That's fine. I'll give you that.
I am pro muzzle loader.
Exactly.
You can have a cannon. I am pro cannon. If you want some heavy firepower, you can have a full-blown cannon and as many cannonballs as you want in your home for your defense. I
Right.
am
Yeah.
pro cannon.
I love that.
And pro muzzle.
You should have a right to build a moat, for sure.
Exactly.
I saw
Like,
there's
you
a guy
want-
I duetted on TikTok the other day too. He had a great level. He's like, I believe in. He's talking about his entire gun journey. He's been
thing
trained in
called
the
love?
military. He
Just
owns
kidding.
like 1,000 assault rifles. Not really 1,000 because I'd call the cops, but he owns some heavy duty stuff. He's like, I'm at the point where I think everyone should give up their arms. I'm totally cool with it. And he said, unless you want to say it's for hunting, at which point I will give you a rifle with 1 bullet per trip, because if you're going to miss after 1 bullet, you're a shitty hunter. That's on you.
Yeah. Take a bow and arrow.
Hunting guns, all of them are equipped exclusively for birdshot. Exclusively. You would have to... It would be easier to beat someone to death with a gun with birdshot in it than it would be to shoot them.
Yeah.
Because it like you would have to turn around and hold like the whole thing. Like it's there are so many ways around. But at the end of the day, if we believe we're the best and there's no one else we can look to get better, and everything that we did to get here to be the best is justified, then there is that philosophy is what solidifies this constant tendency to justify human sacrifice.
Yes.
I mean, we are the best
human
at
sacrifice,
letting
and we call
school
it
children get
something
slaughtered.
else.
We are like
Exactly.
number one
We're
at
the
that.
best at it.
Yeah, the best. Like
Well,
nobody
like you were
else
saying
compares.
earlier, with these same pastor solutions, it's a cost-benefit situation. Every single child that's dying has a price on their lives, whether that is the price of freedom or whatever it is the NRA is paying out the senator people.
No,
The
I'm
money
sorry.
that
The
they are
price of
making,
freedom is
pro-lobbyists,
bullshit.
is worth it for them.
Exactly.
And
that
they've
is
been
what it
taken
is,
for a
because
ride. The price of freedom people have been taking on a ride, and they believe it.
I'm saying, if you want to talk about the price of freedom, then that argument, in my opinion, can only be used when it comes to the military. It's still a bullshit ass argument that I hate, but it can only be applied to the military, because like you are not more free as an individual because you have an assault rifle. If you really think that you are going to protect yourself against a tyrannical government with your assault rifle, let me tell you something about heat-seeking drones.
Thank you.
Like, you are not going to protect yourself against jack shit except the raccoon in your backyard.
Time for that was the 1700s, for sure. In the 1700s, a musket to
Yes.
a musket, like, y'all were good. We are way
Wild.
past that, and we have the largest military
Yeah.
industry
They will
in
literally,
the entire
they don't even
freaking
have
world.
to, they will press a button, it will come to you. It's not even like a tank is going to
Like-
show up at your house. They're just going to press a button and you're going
There's
to go
no way to
bye-bye.
fire against them.
Like, we have the largest Air Force, and if you took the Air Force for every single nation on the planet and combined them together, we have a larger Air Force in our Navy. Not even the one called the Air Force. It's the water people have the most flying machines. That makes no fucking sense. Like our water boys and girls and days, I know how that works, have the most flying machines compared to every other nation. Like,
yeah, it's done. We've lost. Give up.
In our airbender nation. That makes no sense.
Yeah. It's very odd to me how we have developed this idea. So I guess I want to say this before I go on. Every single person watching this, every single person, and everybody not watching this for that matter, should go read Jesus and John Wayne by K.K. Dumez. Kristen Kobe Dumez. That book will explain to you how we went from Jesus of Nazareth to Donald Trump and Jesus Christ. Like, it will take you there and it will explain. It is, I don't even have a word for it. Of course it's eye-opening and enlightening and all of those things because it gives you the direct pathway. But, like, it's also infuriating. Especially if you're someone who has read and studied the Bible in any way without a very, very American agenda, right? Because I say this with full confidence, American Christianity is vastly different than Christianity anywhere else in the world. And if this is another thing about American exceptionalism, right? Americans not only think they are the best because they're American, they think they're the best, they have the best version of Christianity because they have filtered it through a Christian lens, right? So, yeah. You know, of course, American Christianity is better, and that's because we understand things in this very specific way. And this very specific way is, like, extreme patriarchy, pro-Second Amendment, and all of this weird dispensationalism, and, like, just...
I blame it all back on Jim Baker and Jerry Falwell. That's my route of action to them.
I hate them.
I just want to blame somebody, you know, that's why I like blaming Paul.
Well, like, so, can I just take a moment just to list off, like, you just gave a great comprehensive book that would explain, like, a comprehensive idea.
Yeah.
Can we just take a moment and go, here's guys, if y'all want to just get an overview of all the fucked up shit that has happened, I have a couple of recommendations for you.
Yes, go.
One, Reinhold Niebuhr, The Irony of American History. It's a great book. It talks about American exceptionalism, how when you decide that you're the best, you don't look to anyone else to be better, because you don't need to improve if you're the best.
Right.
Yep.
And everything that you did to become the best is justified. So Reinhold Niebuhr, The Irony of American History. Another one would be Stamped from the Beginning, A Comprehensive History of Racist Ideas in America by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. An incredible book. It's
so
free
good
right now on Spotify. If you
so
want to check
good.
it out, it's free on Spotify. It's so good. It's so good. It talks about how every racial idea developed. It also explains how, like, our racial ideas of, like, the lazy Native American and Mexican were created alongside the hardworking, tough African because it was literally a marketing campaign around slavery. And they were generated at the exact same time for the exact same purpose. If you don't know Bell Hooks is a wonderful womanist, feminist author. Wrote The Will to Change. The reason that's an important book is because it talks about the 4 systems that generate and create toxic masculinity. Great book, incredible book. She, queer black woman, incredible. How to Be Less Stupid About Race by Dr. Crystal Fleming, queer black sociologist. Let's get it. Like, fantastic. And finally, this is my last one, and then I'll shut up. This is recommended by Dan McClellan. I've read a little bit of it online since his recommendation. Armed in America, A History of Gun Rights from the Colonial Era to Today. It is written by Patrick Charles. Just a comprehensive view on guns.
Yeah.
And then Jesus and John Wayne, who wrote that one?
Kristen Kobe Dumez. I can spell it out.
And of course, while
Kristen-
we're here, we can't forget Andrew Seidel's The Founding Myth.
Yes.
Thank you.
What up,
Yes.
Andrew? And
What
I'm going
up?
to personally plug a couple of things really quick. This is not a plug. The New Jim Crow. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. It is not a comprehensive history of race, but it does talk about how we've developed our current carceral system and developed a second-class citizenry of people of color. And actually, it does go back quite a ways. So, like, for anyone that's heard me talk about Bacon's Rebellion and things like that, in early sort of Jim Crow, I don't even know what the word is, Jim Crow laws and things like that, I get a lot of information from that book. It is stellar, it is infuriating, and I recommend it first off to everybody that has any interest in this topic. Now, also, I will be talking to Andrew about his newest book on Friday. Oh my god, did I just totally blank out? It's how the Supreme Court is weaponizing religious freedom. American Crusade. That's what it's called. The American Crusade. Yeah. So, sorry.
American
Andrew's book is
Crusade,
called The
okay.
American Crusade, how the religious right is weaponizing religious freedom. Super important. And finally, again, another personal plug, something that I read a long time ago that I have thought is an extremely important book for folks, especially living in America, is called The End of Policing by Dr. Alex Vitale. And it basically talks about why the police don't make us any safer. They actually oftentimes make us less safe. And I say that because in light of the last couple of weeks, or at least the last week, where this mass slaughter of children happened in an elementary school, and we saw the absolutely abysmal, corrupt response of the police, where they, A, let the shooter in the goddamn school, to start with, B, went and got their own children out, and then C, tased, tackled, and handcuffed the parents of the children that were in there that were trying to break through and get their own kids. And 4, came out and said that actually they don't have to do anything because they might have died, and it's not their job to
It would
risk
put their life in danger.
Yeah, and you know what? You know what? It's not. So that's
It's
the
not.
thing. It's not.
Their
The
entire
police
job
don't
is to
make
protect
us
themselves at all
any
times.
fucking safer. And I'm sorry because there's probably people that are like, what, this leftist? And yes, I am. So read The End of Policing by Alex Vitale, or listen to me interview him on Wednesday. I know that's a personal plug, but if you're not someone that wants to read the book, fine. It's $1.99 on Amazon right now, just saying. But otherwise, we're going to talk about that because I think like also the history of policing in this country is integral to this conversation. Because the police started off as a slave patrol, right? It started off as a way to protect white, wealthy property owners. And the violence
Before that, it was a
we
citizen
see-
ran thing. Like, you would patrol, like, if it was me and Andrew living in the same town, I'd be like, hey, Andrew, I'm going to be doing midnight on Monday. If you want to walk around midnight on Tuesday. And we just all, it's like a neighborhood watch thing until it became about catching slaves and making sure the industry of enslaved people could continue. And then they're like, okay, we need like a state force to get out there and like make sure no one's running to other areas.
Right.
Ugh.
And so I'm gonna play. We're still talking about books, so can I just do a few
jump in.
more, and then I'll just.
I have the longest
In
list.
this conversation, and we're gonna keep talking about how like absolutely shitty this all is, and you need to know more about it. I hear a lot of people talking about wanting to make change. If you want to make change in your community, I want to recommend some books about what things to avoid and how you can learn on the front end without hurting a lot of people about how to. A lot of people want to make change usually in ways that actually aren't helpful at all. So I just want to recommend a couple of books real quick, which is one of them is called Toxic Charity by Robert Lupton. It's a great book about how churches and charities sometimes make problems worse. Another one, Charity Detox, same guy. If you want a scathing indictment of how churches exacerbate problems, Charity Detox is for you. Another one, Poverty in America by Iceland. I forget their first name, Iceland. Great books, comprehensive history. And finally, and this is just a personal thing, when you deal with community organizing, eventually you're going to deal with people of faith. And if you're not a person of faith, understanding how to deal with people of faith can be helpful. Faith-based organizing by A Congregation's Plan for Resources Addressing Poverty is a great book to talk about how these institutions can be mobilized for changes. And it does work. It's worked in this country for a very long time. Charles Fredrickson and Violetta Lynn wrote those. Because we're all going to want to... A lot of people are reacting to this, and it's good to react. We need to react. But we need to react in a way that doesn't exacerbate problems. So if you guys want to read some stuff, there's some books.
Yeah. Oh, one last book I would like to recommend. Sorry. And it's
the Unholy Trinit-Tea Book Club. Welcome.
Yeah. I just feel like I've been dying to get all of these books out because they're so good and they're so important. And I know not any one person is going to read all of them. But if anybody listening heard 2 of anything that we've said and read them, that's making it better in some way. That's going to make it help. It's going to help in some way. So another book that was incredibly formative to me. Oh, there was 2. I just forgot the other one. Angela Davis, Are Prisons Obsolete? But the one that I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about both, but Angela Y. Davis's Are Prisons Obsolete? I'm a prison abolitionist. I think everybody knows that. That comes from not only my research and reading, but also from my experience volunteering in prisons. But aside from that, this book by Richard Rothstein called The Color of Law will help a lot of folks understand how we have legislated racism in this country and how we have created this massive racial divide that persists to today, and why, in a lot of ways, we still find people, even though this problem is a white Christian nationalist issue. Yeah. Anybody that is not indoctrinated can see that, right? Anybody. And why we still blame, in conjunction with Dr. Kendi's book, why we still blame literally everything on people of color. And part of it is because we have legislated every negative thing to mostly affect, if not exclusively affect, people of color or poor people at large. But our other legislation has made the majority of poor people of color.
Targets, yeah. Yeah, well, okay, here's the thing. We can see this happening real time. This just reminded me of the newest, grossest part of this entire Uvalde, Texas shooting. We can see this happening in real time. There was already rumors spreading around that the reason why he was a shooter was because he was trans. Now,
oh my God.
This rumor was started on 4chan, saying that he was a transgender individual and he was struggling with bullying, and his entire school career was being bullied for being a trans woman, I guess, but there's no proof. It's literally something that was started on the forums to be anti-trans, and who picked it up? Paul Gosar, and Paul Gosar is now running on this. That trans people are mentally sick, and we can see it because of the Uvalde, Texas shooter. When again, no instance of any of the information that's been released identifies himself as trans. So, the way that they went after people of color and then legislate things into law that will reflect the fear of people of color is exactly what we're seeing in real time with trans people. They're making up stories to fit the laws they already want.
Yeah, it's...
So everyone look out for that, and they're using it in chat. Shut it down as soon as you see it, because that is so much misinformation, and they are using it in every gun debate I see on TikTok right now.
I mean, and this is why I'm such a fucking asshole on the internet, because I cannot tolerate this bullshit where people are just making things up and spewing it out there because they want to hate a specific group of people, right? And I mean, again... I mean, you've seen reps like, God, I hate these people so much, like Lauren Boebert, right, who is saying, like, well, you can't legislate away evil. Yeah. Is that why we're legislating away abortion? Because you think abortion is evil, and suddenly we can legislate that away, but gun violence? Wanton gun violence. We can't legislate that away? We
I
have
can't
to have
remember
more
who said it,
guns.
but they were dead on. If you think you can't legislate evil as a legislator, you're in the wrong job. If you've lost
Right.
all hope to make the country better through legislation, you need to get out of your job, like
If
stopping
you
arrest.
can't legislate evil, then why have any laws? Well, we can't
Yeah.
legislate
Also,
against
like,
murder. So
Flat
fuck it.
out, when Ted Cruz, the first thing that came out of his mouth when he started getting questioning was, I know it's easy to jump to politics. It's like, if it's
You're
easy,
a politician,
motherfucker,
bitch.
the
fuck?
Could you imagine? It's just like, hey, I noticed you didn't do your reports. It's easy to go right to my job description, but I just really think that I can't imagine it. On some level, we have bought into the idea that our politicians are simultaneously the best person for the job and someone we
totally
need to give an
incapable.
infinite amount of grace to because they're the best person for the job. And it's just,
Yep.
like...
So I am not a political stand for anyone because America. But I will
AOC
say
I am.
that I do love her. I do. But what I'm about to say, I love Beto O'Rourke. I love him. I think he's great. I think he is
Yeah.
also doing the bare minimum as a white man with
Yeah.
power in this country, right? And that's not an insult. That's not an insult. But what I'm saying is every fucking person with power and status and privilege should be doing what he did. And it should not be me being brought
Period.
to tears by what he did because he's trying to do the right thing, right? And
Yeah.
like when he interrupted that press conference with Greg Abbott and said like, this is on your hands. Like you could do something about this. That shouldn't make me break down and cry. It shouldn't,
Right.
because like that's what politicians should be doing. But we have accepted that in fact politicians, whether or not we want to admit it, we've accepted that like this is just how it is, and politicians are never really going to do anything, really. And with the exception of few, like I would say, like more firebrands like AOC, we've just accepted this.
Well, and that's the messed up part. Like, we forget that we put these people in power, right? Like,
Hold them
and
accountable.
there are places on it. What? Do what?
Hold them accountable. We put them in power,
This is
and
why
then
we need community organizing. People don't know how much power they have to make their politicians' life a literal
hell.
Can make their like it is not rocket science. You have so many people. If you're angry out there, listeners of the interwebs, everyone around you, there are other people that are around you that are just as angry as you are. And they
Yes.
have time the way you do. If they don't, well, I bet they know a babysitter. And if you all decide to be angry together and organized, angry and organized, you don't need to protest. You don't need to riot. You can. I have watched people sit in a room silent and cause change because they all did it together, and it was so uncomfortable with these lily white,
milk toast ass
people
bitches.
that we put in power. Exactly. You're better at insults than me, so I'm just going to let you translate for me. It just it can be done. If you think you're trapped, I need you to know it can happen. If you rally together and decide that we're going to make a measurable, clear move, and we're all going to do it at the exact same time, and that will be devastating to
Hello.
I mean,
I
like,
love it.
okay,
Do
this
it.
is
Let's do it.
just something
Friday.
so small. So I have a mutual, y'all might be mutuals as well on TikTok. His name is Will Jackson, I believe that's his name. He lives in Texas and he runs by his username is Prince Will Yum, YWM. And he would run by Ted Cruz's house and he would film a TikTok of himself fucking flipping Ted Cruz's house off and basically telling him to get fucked. And he goes to protest, he does all the things, and like shout out to Will. But like just this one person doing this pissed Ted Cruz off enough for him to talk about it on like cable news and call him like a violent extremist, right? Because he ran by his house and flipped him off. Bitch, don't meet me in a dark alley at night. If you want to see violent extremism with someone who is willing to let kids get slaughtered.
That is not a threat, FBI. It was just a rhetoric device.
Oh, dude, my FBI agent has given up at this point. Like, he's like, I don't know this bitch. She's crazy.
Well, can we talk about that for a second? Like, these people are like, so politicians are likely to be very egocentric people. Here's how you know: they think they could run shit.
Yeah.
Do you know how much ego you have to think you could run shit? Now, if you have that much ego, you're also kind of fragile. That's why you work so hard to look good in public, right? It is so easy to make someone with that much insecurity uncomfortable. And then just imagine if 10 people started doing that in front of Ted Cruz's house. Like, also, imagine if those 11 people together did one thing together that made him so uncomfortable he'd be willing to try and build up and win back rapport. Like, that can happen.
Yeah. So I am not a community organizer. Andrew, you would definitely take the lead on this. But, like, something that just pops up in my brain when I think about this, if you know 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever people that are angry about this issue, and you live somewhere within this politician's home, office, whatever, I would bet dollars to donuts that, like, all of us are going to be, I'm a morning person, but you might be a night person, you might be an afternoon person, like, you might have free time in these spaces. Imagine if one of us just was there every single fucking day, morning, noon, and night, when he got there, when he left, when he went for lunch. Like, it is uncomfortable. Think about it that you're at your job and someone is doing this every single day because they want you to change something, and it's not relenting, and you have to walk past them every time you leave your office, right? Like, that's just uncomfortable for me to think about, and I'm a difficult person to make uncomfortable because I don't generally give a shit. But, like, for someone who is fragile, for someone who does think they have the ability to do everything well, who needs approval, who needs validation, to have multiple people showing up all of the time and just saying, you're the fucking worst, and I'm going to be here until you do something, is more powerful than I think a lot of people give credit for. And I get that it's not always convenient. Yeah, please.
Can I add to that? Like so, if you really want to stick it, like, so if you want to, like, do it in a way that won't get you maybe like they can't, like, where a restraining order could not happen against you, you go to a public meeting, and public meetings have space for public commentary. What you do is you prepare a short story of how you're being hurt by a problem, and then you ask a direct question on if they will create a plan to solve it. Okay? Now, that may not seem like a lot. If you get 10
people in a row,
to do that with you, asking the exact same question. In my job here, we did that for 6 months and created a $1.25 million change in policy. It works. You can't, and they can't tell you can't come to a city meeting,
right?
A county meeting. They can't make you do that. And all it takes, and you don't have to yell, you don't have to swear. You can calmly,
but you can.
People like you up front. If you, like, imagine Nana up front going, I'm hurt in this way. Will you fix this problem? And then they have to give a like this rhetorical answer, right? And then the next person comes up. I'm being hurt by this. Will you fix this problem? And then they have to think up new words, and you get to watch them lose their mind in 30 minutes, and everyone made like a 2-minute effort.
Love it.
And that's it.
Just sign me up for the last spot, because I am going to cuss. And I will certainly make them angry. Yeah, but sign me up for the last spot, because, like, I want you all to make this person uncomfortable, and then I want to come in and rip his fucking soul out. And I want that to be what he goes to sleep at night thinking about, and then let's do it the next week. Because it doesn't hurt my feelings, exactly. It doesn't make me uncomfortable.
I'm here with it.
Well, and you would get to model anger for other people. And people think they're not allowed to be angry about things that hurt them. Yeah. You can.
Yeah, you can. And people that, I don't care how they dress it up, and I think this way about a lot of things, about Christians, about politicians, about whoever else, they will find a way to dress up their bigotry. They will find a way to dress up their inaction. They will find a way to make these horrifying things that they're doing or not doing palatable to people that don't want to think about it. And because they do it in this way that seems civil, people feel obligated to respond in kind. It is not civil to vote against people's rights. It's not civil to refuse to take action on something that could save the lives of children. None of that is civil just because you slapped some nice fucking words on it. It's not civil, no matter how you phrase it, no matter how you say it, no matter how you present it. And it is okay, and I think, honestly, just, and if you're religious, holy, to be fucking angry that these people are sitting there doing nothing, dressing it up, when they could do something, when they have the power to make change. Because right now our entire country is being beholden to 50 fucking senators that prefer their pockets lined than they do to the lives of living children. It is justified and it is holy to be angry about that shit. And I know that not everybody feels as comfortable expressing that as I do, and that's because I grew up being silenced. And that's because my personality has always been this way. But the thing is it takes all kinds, and it takes all kinds of work. But I think that, like, if you think that just because someone is talking to you civilly about uncivilized, bullshit, violent things, that you have to respond with kindness, fuck no, you don't. Absolutely fucking not. And I will die on this hill because there is no, and I know I'm on a tirade at the moment, but I'm pissed because people are dying and people are suffering and people are losing their human rights, and we are being lectured, told that we should be kinder, more thoughtful, that we should be doing something differently to make these people hear us. They don't care about hearing us. If they wanted to hear us, they would have already, right? They don't care about hearing us. They don't care about change. And so whatever way you show up, whatever voice you have, whatever, you keep showing up and you keep doing it in that way, because it takes all of us. It takes some of us who just show up and sit silently, and I will never begrudge people that. It takes some of us that show up with signs. It takes some of us that show up and try and educate. It takes some of us that show up and get fucking arrested because we ran through the barricades, right? It takes all of us.
Honestly, so you're 110% correct. Like, I fully agree with everything that you're saying. And I think that people think that they don't do enough. You don't understand. You're a voting citizen in this person's district that you're trying to push to make change. If enough of you just simply show up, they know they're at risk. That's the beginning and the end of it. Mm-hmm. And here's some great news. Well, terrible news, but also kind of great news. A lot of you live in states in the United States that have no state regulation for a certain thing. That's terrible. So bad news, there's no state regulation. The good news is that means it's in the hand of the city and county politicians. Your city, your county, is a significantly smaller group of people, and they probably are not used to feeling the threat of people power up against them. People power will always be the most powerful force against the status quo, and you cannot have enough money to outdo people power. You can't. For everything that's wrong in this country, that is something you cannot outdo. If you have enough people, game over. And it doesn't even have to be enough people to vote someone out of office. It just has to be enough people that can make even the most lecherous, cold-hearted politician want to pander to you by giving you what you need so that the people around you have what they need to survive. They don't need to be a good person. They just need to be a person that's scared of you.
Right. I love it.
And if you need tips on how to make people scared of you, hit me up on Twitter. No, I think, like,
well,
the thing is,
we're kind of rounding out the hour, but yeah, finish.
I think we should end on this. Like, you just need to make the assholes afraid. That's it. You need enough people
Exactly.
to scare them. That's it.
And the
It
one
doesn't
thing they
have to
value
be-
most is their job and the money that allows them. So,
Yep.
come after
So-
their job and the money.
And on this note, if you were a straight white man, or woman for that matter, to the front. To the front. And that's not to say that other people shouldn't show up or that they're not allowed or whatever, but like, we are going to have the most influence. Whether we like it or not, most of our politicians are straight white people. They are going to give more credence to someone that looks like me than they are to a person of color. And they're going to be more frightened of someone that looks like me than they are of a person of color because they view me as more human. That's it.
Yeah.
Full stop. They view me as more human.
Unfortunately, true.
And the benefit there is when people that look like Jess and people that look like so many white straight people, when they are seen with the same language, using the same language, using the same verbiage, using the same concern as the black woman standing beside them, as the indigenous person standing beside them, that shows that it's a problem that has hit not just people that look just like them, but every single people that they are not like. And that is a special kind of scary. And great news, y'all. The thing that wakes up the good people terrifies the bad people. It's the same move. It's like amoxicillin. Whatever you're sick with, it fixes it. So it's just like, rally together, and you can make change. Don't give up.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
We can only do this together.
Right. So, with that, I know I'm going to be talking about more community organizing stuff online, and so I'll lead off with my stuff. You can find me at red_sage1 on everything. I'm going to start talking about a lot more community organizing stuff, if that's something that interests y'all. But that's how you can find me. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Jess?
Recently, I've been talking a lot about sexual abuse in the church. It's not the only thing I talk about, but because it's been so rampant and prevalent and so underreported in the media, I am using every single platform I have to talk about it because these people's stories deserve to be told. And honestly, I can't force society to hold these men accountable, but I can certainly use whatever platform I have to make everyone aware of their bullshit. So on that note, you can find me on TikTok, Queen of the Heathens. I've been talking a lot about this on my YouTube shorts as well. On YouTube, I'm also putting out a bunch of interviews with scholars, talking about a whole bunch of different things. And that's Heathen Queen. On Instagram, I'm the same, Queen of the Heathens. And on Twitter, if you're nasty. No, you can find me Queen of the Heathens, but that's only for the, not for the faint of heart, Jegaysus?
Yeah. The way you made it sound like you have like a spicy OnlyFans Twitter. So just to clarify,
No, I'm just an asshole.
It's a fight, and it's a tussle Twitter, not a nasty other direction Twitter. Not that it's nasty, just
no, it's fine.
Don't
It's
get
just you're not
upset
gonna
when
find
you're
that
not
there.
seeing the
Sorry.
nudes. Yeah. So on my channel for the past week or so, I've just kind of also been talking about gun rights, and I'm just very pro-abolitionist at this point. And so that's kind of what I've been doing, kind of the same thing. I'm just frustrated, so I'm just using my platform for that, whether or not it's getting traction. I'm already silenced and shadow banned anyway. We have, this is going to be releasing later, so this is probably going to be post-Pride out, so hopefully that goes well. Happy Pride Month, everybody. It's now June. Yay. Also, so if you are listening to this, I hope that you have a chance to rate us. If this is on Apple or Spotify, you can go ahead and rate us, 5 stars, unless you don't want to rate us 5 stars. That's your opinion. That's cool. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, turn on the bell, all those things, like and comment below to have a conversation about how you want to expand this into your community, especially the last part we ended up with. I'd like to hear, if you have any community projects around you that you want to boost, so maybe more people can find it and join you. And then if you have any questions for us, go ahead and email us at Unholy Trinit-Tea. That's spelled the regular way, TRINITY 2021.
I made the
at
email
gmail.com.
before I realized we were changing
Before
the
we
name,
made the
so
show.
we just gotta roll with it now. Yeah?
We're here now.
We're here.
Alrighty. Thank everyone for watching. And yeah, bye.
And read those books.
All of them.
Yeah,
We'll put them
so
in the
many
show
books. You have
notes.
20.
Yeah,
You gotta
sorry,
read all of
Grant.
them before
Alright.
next week.
There'll be a quiz. Bye.
Bye.